Can you digitally enhance the picture? It looks pretty bad.
There's some things we can't fix.
That's what I was figuring.
We cannot turn back the
I know.
clock
At the time.
Yes. Well, I want to thank you for coming.
Sure.
I appreciate it. We obviously, as concerned taxpayers, most of our questions are going to be related to fiscal matters, and we are going to try to do this in a way that is mindful of your, I understand, very compressed schedule right now.
Tight Saturday it is.
Yes.
I know you opened your campaign office.
We did.
Okay.
Just left a few minutes ago. We're a good crowd.
So,
Yeah.
good news. Yes. So what we will try to do, we only have 7 specific questions that we plan to ask you, although members of the panel will probably follow up on some of your answers to some of the questions.
Sure.
So we want to start by giving you 5 minutes to basically say whatever you want to say, and at the end we'll give you a couple minutes then too. So shoot.
Okay. Do you need to? You want me to share my bio, or do you want me just to?
You
I'm
can
not
do
sure.
that. I mean, you can throw that in your opening statement.
Whatever message you want to get to us.
Okay.
And through us, hopefully, through a voter's guide to
Sure.
a lot of other things.
Understand. Well, I am a Jacksonville native. The first settlers here were ancestors of mine. Louis Zachariah Hogan built this log cabin on what's now Hogan Street and Forsyth Street back in 1816. Almost my entire life, I didn't have a cousin that lived within 11 miles of my home. Family's very close. Went to Paxton High School, graduated in 1967, and went to Memphis State my first year. I was going to be a dentist, and found out I didn't like organic chemistry very much. Kept taking it and kept dropping it. Ended up and received my degree in zoology at the University of South Florida in Tampa in 1972. I've worked all my life. I started, had a grit newspaper route at the age of around 12. Sold cards door to door, get my own bicycle, and went to work. Had to go get a worker's permit at the age of 15. My dad was a telephone man. I didn't know we were poor, but we didn't make much money back in those days. And so I went to work at the A&P just to make the money to buy my clothes. And worked all the way through college. In fact, my senior year in college, I had 3 jobs. Went to work out of college as a science teacher, trying to use my degree in zoology. Taught 1 year. Then I went to work for the health department, Duval County, and later transferred to Clay County, and then back to Duval County. And I did a little bit of everything there. I inspected water and sewage treatment plants. I did septic tank percolation tests. I inspected restaurants, grocery stores, institutional facilities. Then I went to work with a telephone company. I followed in my dad's footsteps. Started out in marketing, was there a number of years in marketing, then went to labor relations and spent 5 years in labor relations. I handled negotiations with the unions. I handled arbitration. I handled grievances. I trained Southern Bell's management employees all over the Northeast Florida area, and actually North Florida area, from Orlando to Pensacola, on how to deal with a contract, how to work with labor relation agreements, and how to work with stewards and officers of the union. Then I went into real estate, served 2.5 years in that capacity, bought and sold property for the company, handled zonings, leases, contracts, and actually the Southern Bell Tower downtown was on my watch. I closed that purchase and enjoyed my time in real estate. The company liked to use company people. We didn't like to hire experts that knew about real estate. They weren't an expert who knew about the telephone company. They would teach us real estate, and they did. And then my last 5 years, I was the safety manager for all of Florida. So I had responsibility in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, Jacksonville, Pensacola, Orlando, Gainesville, you name it. Big cities in Florida, they were my responsibility. I had a team of investigators for a while, and as we were downsizing, and ended up I was the only one. So we started with 16 when I got there, and I ended up, Hogan was the guy for the whole state. So I had to answer all the OSHA issues and prepare those replies from the company, and then protect our assets from fines and so forth. The company was encouraging to all of its employees to become involved in the community. So they put me in Rotary, Junior Achievement, United Way, anything to do with the Gator Bowl and sales of basketball tickets or football tickets, Leadership Jacksonville, and then I decided, I'm sorry, I should turn that on. In 1991 to run for the city council. We ran and totally unknown, and I don't attribute anything other than to my supporters, our victory, but I put a large credit to the fact that that was the year that was, let's turn the bums out. And so all the incumbents were, there's not very good feelings by the public for incumbents. And we beat a 14-year incumbent that was going to be the president of the council, Miss Tebow, sweet lady. Served 8 years, checked my record, didn't vote for tax increases, very conservative. I was alone, no vote on many, many, many issues. One that stands out was what is now called the Soulspacker Homeless Center. I said, if you build it, they will come, and if we build it, we will pay for it, and it's on our budget today. I also voted against. I was one of 5 that voted against the contract with, at that time, Touchdown Jacksonville, which later, of course, became the Jaguars. I'm an athlete. I played football in high school. I love football, love to watch it, but the deal was not right, and so I voted against it. City council members knew that the city's own attorney recommended a no vote because of the structure of the contract, and the council auditor wrote a 31-page report that you'd have to be a village idiot not to recognize it. He was trying to tell you to vote no. There were too many problems with that lease. That has never hurt me in my political career, although that's one of the things that my opponents are using against me now and sharing with other people, that I'm anti-Jaguar. I mean, the vote is what the vote is. So, 3 years in Florida House, and then ran for tax collector in 2003. And I've been tax collector since that time. Instituted a lot of changes. We're getting less money from the city than we got when I first took office. About 46% of our budget was coming from the city, and now about 18% is. We've done that through increasing our operation and handling more business for the state. And so about 7.5 years, we've also reduced our expenses during that period of time, even though we've actually grown because we're providing more services. Focused on customer service, but we focused on customer service as the mayor. Open communicator, 100 town meetings as a councilman. Answered all my emails as a state representative. If you write the tax collector's office, you're going to get a reply from me. And I guess that's all I've shared with you. Just whatever questions you may have.
I want to start by going to Terry Dates, our vice chair and senior most member of this committee.
Thank you.
You're welcome, I guess.
Well, let me start out with the first question we got on this list.
Okay.
Thanks for coming.
Oh, you're welcome, Tony. I mean,
opportunity to get to know you better, maybe get your views about government.
sure.
And that's specifically maybe the first question I want to start with. What do you think are the core functions of government now, and are any functions of government that exist or we should not be involved with?
Okay. It's an easy question for me because, as I mentioned to you, I was, as a councilman, I held 100 town meetings during the 8 years I served as a councilman. I always made sure that I held those town meetings during the budget cycle. And I would ask my constituents pretty much that question you just asked me. If you're in my shoes, if you're Mike Hogan and you're the council representative for District 12, what are your top 10 priorities? What must be funded before anything else? Every year, there were 4 in the top 4. Same 4, not necessarily in the order 1, 2, 3, 4. Public safety, streets and highways and drainage, parks and recreation, and education, which is not a part of the city councilman's responsibility, but is a major issue to your constituents. So the core functions of government: provide public safety, Our people should feel safe at home, at work, at school, at play. Infrastructure, roads, streets, drainage, highways, buildings. You know, as a councilman for 8 years, those were the complaints I received. Those were the things people talked to me about. The things they complained to me about as well. Or those things not being done well. Parks, mowed, lights, facilities working, access, all those things that you and I would want. Complaints were about wasteful spending. And wasteful spending, I guess, goes into the category that you were talking about. What are things we don't need to be doing? Everything beyond those three, to me, is low-hanging fruit, meaning it's subject to be axed if we don't have the resources to pay for it. That would include some things that are pretty important. We're in one, a library. I would love to see us, in the Better Jacksonville plan, not have included all these branch libraries. Not because I'm anti-libraries, because we didn't include any money in the Better Jacksonville plan to pay for the upkeep of them, put the books in them, to pay for the staff. We did that in both those plans, the Renaissance and the Better Jacksonville plan. The Jacksonville Journey, there are a couple of programs that seem to be working, but many that aren't. I'm not sure that everybody agrees with me, but I don't believe that government is responsible for me from cradle to grave. I think my tax dollars should be spent on the three items that I mentioned to you. If we have surplus, if we have extra money, then of course you can do some other things that do add to the quality of life, obviously. Libraries do add to the quality of life. There are programs that the Journey provides for disadvantaged children that do add to the quality of life. There's permitting and so forth. But I don't know if you knew this, but in Texas, I don't think they permit a house anymore. I don't think you don't have to go through any permitting to build a house in Texas. It's still free country over there. But there's a lot of things that we do that are low-hanging fruit on the governmental tree. And I will focus on those three core functions.
All right, let me just ask, I can get a list from that. So I would like maybe Dan to ask his, maybe his usual first.
Yes, go ahead.
Why would you want to seek the office of mayor? What's your reason?
Well, Dan, if there was not another conservative running, I would not have run. I enjoy being the tax collector. It's a secure position. Most tax collectors are not challenged after they're in office unless they've done something really bad. Customer service or stole from the public. Earl K. Woods, the tax collector in Orange County in Orlando, he's 94 years old. He's been elected 11 times. We're just not usually kicked out of office if we do a good job. And I would be perfectly content to have stayed there. But I didn't see anybody coming to the table that's a conservative. Now I'm hearing some of my opponents now claim that they are, but they've not exhibited those conservative values in the past. And so, no, I would not have run had I thought there would have been someone else that would have stepped in that would have had our conservative values. I don't need this for any personal gain or gratitude of myself. My highlights in my life have already been established, and that's my family and my grandkids and my wife. I was perfectly content right where I was. There have been days I've been asking myself, why did I do this? I am a man of faith. I prayed about this for about 1.5 years before I made the decision. I talked to my wife to make sure that she was fully supportive of this because this is a family affair. And so those are the reasons that I ran. I know that I can change the fiscal habits of the city. And I know that I'm not scared of making tough decisions. And it doesn't matter to me who receives the end result of that tough decision. There was a fellow that prayed for me today at our kickoff. His name is Joe Collins, and many of you may know Joe. He's a developer. He's a great friend. He had a zoning in my district, in District 12. He wanted smaller lots than I or my constituents were willing to give him. He pressed for a long time. He's always been a contributor. We denied him. He went to another council member, an at-large council member, to fight for the zoning. Ended up, he didn't get it. It cost him $400,000, and I knew it was going to cost him $400,000. But I have a greater burden and a greater responsibility to my constituents, and it has never affected our friendship. So I didn't see anybody coming to the table that I thought was going to change the structure, the role, the purpose, the vision, and the focus of government. So that's why we went.
I think we got another question on about pensions, but I wanted to use your courage. I don't know if you made it.
I don't think so.
He's our expert on pension.
Okay.
So I think Curtis, I would refer to you to ask a question about
Thank you.
pension.
Thank you for the introduction. I speak often at city council and have written letters. I'm a retired attorney, but I started working in pension matters 30 years ago.
Did you?
I've been in the area for a long time. I started in the private sector, but there is a stark difference between private and public pensions, as
Yes.
you no doubt know.
Yeah.
But at any rate, the question is, what is your solution to Jacksonville's pension problem?
Well, there's a couple of obvious things. If you've been studying the pension, that make pension reform very difficult in the public arena than much more difficult than it is in the private arena. Stop me if I give you too much detail, or if you want a simple answer, I'll just tell you that we're going to reform, and going forward at some point in time we're going to negotiate and say this is the line in the sand, and you're going to go to define contribution, not a defined benefit on this date. And if we reach impasse, it goes to the city council, then guys like you are going to have to help me make sure that we hold the line. That's the simple answer. The more accurate answer is that you've got to deal with issues that are contractually in place. When the telephone company saw the hazard of defined benefit and started to change, they did so with their managers because there was no contract. And so I was in management, so my retirement year kept moving out. I work a year and it was a year further out. My contribution increased. My medical contributions increased. They saw that what was happening in the marketplace was not going to be sustainable. Government didn't, and made no movement, and kept with the defined benefit plan. There are some hazards with the fact that the city of Jacksonville that has to deal with. Number one, the city receives a contribution to the Police and Fire Pension Fund from the state. It's from peril insurance, and I think also from traffic tickets. It's about 2 to 3% contribution toward the pension. In order to get that 2 to 3%, you have to be on defined benefit. The city went to it originally because they didn't have to pay Social Security. I know Social Security's down a little bit, but it averages about 6 or 7%. So if you change from defined contribution, from defined benefit to defined contribution, the first thing you lose is the match from the state, or the 3% from the state, and you have to start paying. There is some debate, and you're an attorney, I'm not. There is some debate. It appears that you have to start paying Social Security. You have to give them, pay the employer's portion. So you add those two together, that's 8-9%. So it's not an easy fix. I do know that the 2030 contract exists. Are you familiar with that? That's been explained before. Okay.
Yes.
And so there are some numbers fixed there that are very hazardous to our health. The drop plan has to be changed. Certainly you need to at least copy the state. When you drop in the state, you leave, you retire, you take your money. The city of Jacksonville lets you keep it there at 8.4% or 8.5%. Well, nobody's moving it out because nobody's making that money anywhere in the marketplace. That's to me seems to be an easy fix and something that you should be able to negotiate, even though it's with an existing contract. I think they should know to move there. Having talked with them, I've studied this thing, and I'm not an actuarialist. I'm not a CPA. I'm just a businessman. I'm a zoologist. I know that they're not going to kill the goose that laid the golden egg. they don't want to see firefighters and policemen laid off, because that's the other alternative, or bankruptcy, and then nobody wins. So I think there'll be some movement. They're still angry that we've underfunded it. We took pension holidays, and they feel like a lot of the problem is caused by the administration, caused by the city. So I have not had to promise them anything to receive the police endorsement, other than be fair, be open-minded, and make sure they're paid fair wages and fair benefits. And to me, fair wages and fair benefits is what the market will bear. What will they come to work for? We don't need to get out of line. The question that was asked of me in the police interview, which I thought was going to be my killer question as far as perhaps receiving their endorsement, a young fella said, "Mr. Hogan, we're 92nd in the state in pay. We're 8th in this, we're 7th in that, we're 5th in this, we're 3rd in this. Will you commit to move us to the top 10 in pay?" And I told him no. I knew what the answer he wanted to hear was, but I told him no, and I explained to him, you're just giving me a number and you're giving me a rank. I don't know what it's based on. Is that starting salary? Is that the whole benefit and salary package combined? Is that across the board, an average, an aggregate? And then I shared with him the story about the Tallahassee event where the teacher came to me and said, would you commit to raising our salary so that starting salaries in Florida are the same as the starting salaries in Georgia? Thinking, yeah, we should be able to do that. And I said, well, yeah, I'll do that. I'll give you that commitment. I said, but let me go study the numbers. I want to make sure everything's right. I'm glad I added that little qualifier. Because when you look at the numbers, it is true. There's $3,500 difference between the starting salary of a teacher in Georgia and the starting salary of a teacher in Florida. That was 4 or 5 years ago. But teachers in Georgia pay a state income tax. They don't pay that here. The teachers in Georgia pay into their retirement. They don't pay for retirement here. It's fully funded by the state of Florida, you and I as taxpayers. We did all the math, and it was about $100 difference in spendable income. So, but we did get the police endorsement. They have been very bitter with me about my statements in the press, that I was disappointed, and I went into greater detail if you went on our website. And this morning we had our grand opening. I called Nelson for a couple of officers to come over and help control the traffic, and he refused. So I don't know if that's going to. I don't know if that's going to be.
I'm getting to like you more.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's going to be rescinded or not. But that's. Did I answer your question, sir, on the pension? Moving it to a
Yes,
defined.
I mean, obviously, well, we could take up a whole meeting on it, but we
Yeah,
won't. But I mean, you sound well informed, and you gave the sort of answer I was expecting. So thank you.
But, and pretty well related to that is, we have a question asking what your general plans are for upcoming collective bargaining with all the various units over the city and public safety.
Well, you guys always want us to be honest when we come up here. That's not something that we've really looked at right now as far as future bargaining decisions. I will tell you what I would tell anybody that, obviously everything's on the table when the contract is open, everything from benefits to hours and pay scales, you name it. So I'm a different cat, though. If that's my revenue and that's all I've got to spend, that's all I'm going to spend. And I'm going to prioritize everything that I've got to spend that money on. And I already shared with you my core functions of government are public safety, infrastructure, and parks and recreation. So if I go through all that money to do that right, then we're going to, just have to make adjustments. But are the police overpaid or underpaid? I can't tell you right now. If you look at the salary charts, they might have an argument. I did do a little bit of homework on their 92nd. That's in starting pay. It was not a number that should have been use to determine where they really rank. I'm not pleased with the fact that our sheriff requires, and you may disagree with me here, a college degree to be a police officer. I'm not sure you need a college degree to be a police officer, and especially when you look at how many kids actually go to college. I think you can be a police officer with less than a college degree. That creates a different pay range if you have requirements for a college degree.
Just to interject one thing, and I could prove this to you at a later date if you want, but if you add in the benefit load, especially the pension load, the average police officer costs over $100,000 a year in Jacksonville. Currently.
Yes. Do you know what that number was prior to the economy going into the tank?
Well, it's been approximately the same for the last year or two because of the fact that there have been base pay increases. And the big pension jump occurred a little bit over a year ago. But as of 3 or 4 years ago, no, I did not have anything.
So, you know, if you are elected as mayor, that you'll be coming into the budget process kind of late for this year. So do you have any plans to influence the 2011, 2012 budget this year?
I keep hearing my opponents talk about how, it's going to be such a struggle to come in late. You're not coming in late. I was elected tax collector. The budget pretty much was done for the tax collector's office. But in less than a week, we knew what we needed and made the adjustments. Now that's a $14 million budget compared to $1 billion budget, but I was on the council for 8 years, and we'll be up to speed. I'm not going to use the time between you're elected as the mayor before you're sworn in as the mayor in July. There's a month and a half, almost 2 months right there to get to speed on the budget. So I'm not too concerned. We do have people that are already looking at it. I'm not presumptuous on anything. You run a race, you don't know what's going to happen. But you do make plans. Terry Woods, I don't know if any of y'all know Terry. He used to serve on the council. Probably the best. He was the best when I was there. Council member ever as it related to knowledge of our budget. And we want to bring him on board. He's studying the budget now. I've got 2 that work for me in the tax collector's office on their spare time. One was a council auditor for 5 years. Her name is Allison Luker. I'll bring her with me. And the other was Debbie Duran. Debbie worked in several different mayoral administrative offices, but she wanted to be an accountant. She really wanted to do the work of a CPA, and they always had her on projects and plans and stuff like that. So she came to work for us for less than what the mayor was paying. But she's great. She knows every nip and cranny of the budget. So we're not concerned about getting up to speed and knowing that budget.
Well, if you need any help, or any other mayor needs help, we avail ourselves to help develop the budget.
My constituents have always done that. That's for
Mike,
sure.
if you had the the budget that was just adopted in September, if you had that to do over, do you think there's any fat in that could have been cut?
Oh, yes, sir. There was fat in that, still fat in that. You notice they didn't get rid of anybody in the mayoral staff. I mean, obviously Adam Hollingsworth could take a leave of absence for 4 months and go work with Rick Scott in his campaign. And he's 170,000 plus benefits. I don't know. Clayman, you have a fire department that's got a fire chief, and then you got this administrator over the fire chief that makes with benefits and package and everything about $200,000 a year. There's 370 that I can think of in 2 people. But I could cut his mayoral staff in half, and his appointments at 200 and something. Is that what it is? It's an incredible number to me. Yes, you need people that you can have control over. Civil service is very difficult to deal with. I've been in both now with the union at Southern Bell and civil service with City Hall. I'll take the union over civil service. It took my office almost 6 years to hire a lady with horrible, horrible results as it related to her errors in overages and shortages at the counter. And after we went through, I think, 2 suspensions, 3 reductions in pay, 2 or 3 final letters of warning, and we fired her. I'm sitting with an appointed civil service board, and we listed everything we had done. I mean, it was like a rap sheet for a career criminal. And one of the members on the board said, "Mr. Hogan, is there any way you can give her one more chance?" I mean, it's tough to fire somebody, but we have. We fired up. We have not lost a case in the civil service court. It takes a lot of time, takes a lot of money, and a lot of effort to get that done. It shouldn't. It does. So we started hiring part-timers.
I think Ryan should ask a question.
Yeah, you've talked about the 3 priorities, looking, and you've seen all this go by, and I've seen you up there swinging. I've talked to you when you were up there swinging. What is there that you can say right now that is surplus, can go away? You said these things have to stay. What are the things that the people are yelling at you that do need to go away?
The biggest thing is just a lot of policies and procedures that create cost. Procurement. We believe they're just in rewriting the purchasing policy will save between 5 and 10%. Just a rewrite of the program and the procedures and how we implement and involve ourselves in purchasing. The next thing is buying better. I kept noticing cost for supplies and things in my office, and I asked my secretary, I said, "Give me the last 20 items we purchased. I don't care what they are, just the last 20 items." She gave me the list. 7 of them I could buy at Office Depot, so I went to Office Depot that evening, went in as a consumer off the street, and I could have bought the same products for 10% less than what I paid through the city purchasing. Well, I was in the State House, and the state had a contract with Office Depot, and the rule is if the state has a contract, every county, city, organization, municipality can dovetail on any state contract. So I called the lady that handled the state contract for Office Depot, gave her the same 7 items. Now my savings were 23%. I took my CPA and I said on these other items, I said, go on a website. Just give me some numbers. Look at these products and give me some prices. Using the exact same serial codes, the model numbers, we were saving 20 and 35% on the purchases. So we think there's 45 million perhaps available to us just in savings on purchasing. Redundancy. First thing we'll do is we'll get rid of the Human Rights Commission. I don't care what they tell you, we haven't been able to find anything in there that we're getting $7 million from the federal government to have a Human Rights Commission. Number one, it doesn't make sense. Why would they pay us $7 million to set up an office that cost $1 million? Something screwy there. My 2 girls can't find where those dollars are. What we think they're talking about is we may be getting some grants. Well, what if you don't need those grants? But even the grants don't total their $7 million, so we don't know where that number came from. So why would we pay for, as taxpayers, a Human Rights Commission at the federal level, a Human Rights Commission at the state level, a Human Rights Commission at the local level? That's just unnecessary. That's more than duplication. That's triplication, I guess, if that's a word. So we get rid of that. We would go through every single organization, just like I did when I was with Southern Bell. In 1984, we were divested of all of our assets by a federal judge. 98 cents on the dollar for long distance charges was profit. All that went to AT&T. And overnight we lost it. We were Baby Bell, Southern Bell now, and we had to exist off of local service and a little bit of money that they would pay us for accessing through our trunks for long distance. We didn't go for rate increases. The first thing we did was your first question. What are our core functions now that we're a new business? Now let's go through all of our policies, procedures, programs, organizations, and are they contributing to those core functions? If they're not, let's get rid of them. Within 3 years, we never asked for a rate increase. Could have. Probably justified. Could have. Not only were we the #1 recommended choice by Wall Street for stock, our customer service numbers went north. We laid not one person off. We provided incentives for them to go, and we downsized, right-sized our corporation. That's what we'll do with government. That's what we've been doing in my office. Our expenses are less today than they were when I got there. And we're doing more.
Give us your views about Joint Economic Development Commission, Children's Commission, and the Cultural Council.
The Children's Commission was a backdoor foil on the public, because the public voted against the $1 million set aside for Children's Commission. Today we're spending more than $1 million on the Children's Commission. There are excellent programs all over this community that are provided by charities, churches, other groups, providing the infrastructure that we could link into to help our citizens in need of whatever it is, healthcare, food, whatever it is. There are agencies outside of government that are already paying the cost of the administrative costs, so we wouldn't have to duplicate those services. Children's Commission will be sorely or severely restricted under our watch as mayor. The Journey is another one that would be sorely restricted under our watch as mayor. I'm not saying that everything they do is bad or not good or not producing good results, but they're going to have to stand the same test as any other business plan would require to do. What are we spending? What are we getting? Is there a benefit?
The other two, JEDC, particularly the use of tax dollars for incentives.
We have a lot going for us that we don't need to be paying incentives. We don't have dollars to pay incentives right now anyway in our budget. We do have assets on the books, and I've always been a proponent of forgiving taxes if there were no taxes there to begin with. For example, we own the shipyards. Because we own it, it doesn't pay any property taxes. Okay. I would tell you one plan right quickly to kind of give you an idea of our vision there on incentives. We do need a convention center. We don't have the money to buy one, and it is not a priority. But it is an economic engine. So let's think for a moment and say that we could give some land to a hotel, and we'll build a convention center on the first floor. We'll sell the hotel the air rights above it. They're tied, locked in. Their guests don't even have to go out in the rain to get into the convention center. And they charge their guests a little bit more in bed tax that pays for the building of that convention center. They don't pay anything for the land, but they immediately go on the tax rolls and they start paying property taxes. That's an incentive that I could buy and would sell and approve. Now, would I give that company, like we did out there at the in the villa on Union Street, the seafood restaurant that's never opened, $1.2 million? No, that was a waste, is a waste. There are ways that we can incentivize without giving away the palm. I did vote for, during my time on the city council, I voted for a incentive package for what was in Adams Mark. I think we put $20 million. Most of the money we put in was in infrastructure around the building, but the commitment from the owner was $83 million. I voted against Bucky Clarkson, and I like Bucky. I didn't even know the Adam Mark's owner, but I knew Bucky, and I voted against him because of the 100% of the cost. He wanted 60% coming from the city. Well, where's his rules? So I voted against that one. So I have been for and against incentives. It all depends on if it makes good business sense to me.
One more, the Cultural Council. Subsidizing art, symphony, ball venues, museum.
I want to say, when I first got on the council, we had a pocket of money that was for basically charities, and we would distribute that each year based on need and based on request, kind of like reviewing a grant request from an individual. But we had a fixed dollar amount, and that was really, we had a little bit of money back then. I voted against the 1% or whatever it was set aside in the,
Arts and public.
yes, yeah, that's, to me, let's get, the people that are really into that, let's let them make that contribution. I don't see that as being government control. Certainly not now. If we were in a period of surplus and we were spending the money correctly and we had excess money, I'm not someone that's opposed to art, but I just don't think that's government's buy.
And the yield would not come back as time allows.
All right. We do have a couple of other specific questions that we're asking everybody. So, what savings do you see in future budgets, future city budgets, coming from the constitutional office departments, such as the one you were just in? What savings, but also the sheriff's department, property appraiser, et cetera?
Each constitutional office is uniquely different. One of the things we need to fix that consolidation didn't fix is a better definition of what those offices are about. The city treats, I can only use myself, the city treats me as a constitutional officer when it's convenient for them, and as a city charter officer when it's convenient for them. The mayor will get a complaint about my office, and he'll write the constituent and say, you need to write Mr. Hogan. He's a constitutional independent officer. I have no authority over his office. And then at the same time, the mayor and I don't have a very good relationship. And it all started with the fees. And he was telling council that if they put the fees on the property tax bill, that it wouldn't jeopardize property ownership, which is a false statement. If you put the fees as we did this year, and that was not at my protest, but I don't have control over that. They can do that as the legislative body. If you don't pay them, I can sell your property. And so I wrote the council the first year they tried to do it and told them that, and the council backed off, and the mayor was furious with me, and he called me from the airport, and he said, I'm the chief executive officer of this city, and I'm giving you a direct order not to send your letter. And I said, well, did you hear that? And he said, hear what? And I said, well, probably didn't. That was my send button on my computer. The letter has been sent. Every council member has it. And he did not get his way with us. But that's a very difficult question. I don't intimately know the budget of the clerk of the court. I don't know the budget of the sheriff. I've read it, but I'm not pleased with it. I have good officers over there telling me there's a lot of waste, and the way that their system is set up. I have one gentleman that works for me that thinks that he could save millions of dollars just on payroll, on better distributing their time and managing their schedules. Same thing for the fire department. But that's not a constitutional officer. The clerk has some challenges with the state and where the funding is going. They've been arguing since I've been there. Supervisor elections, Jerry Holland's budget is pretty decent. He'd like to save money, and the council has not been able to come together on how to change the date of the election. I would have been in favor of moving the election to November of the even year. I was not in favor of moving it to November of the odd year. You don't save anything. That's just, I don't know where they came up with that. They said it was giving more time to prepare for a budget the first year in office. That's not a reason to move the elections. Did I answer your question, John?
I think that's an adequate question.
And let me add into that. You as a constitutional officer wanted that independence from the mayor.
Yes.
Now, your position's going to change.
No, I still
The mayor
want.
wanted an oversight of the budget. As you as mayor going to give them their constitutional.
Well, the tax collector is going to have a tough time because I know what his budget's like. But I'm going to have to learn the state regs and requirements of the other offices. Overton, for instance, he delivers his budget to the Department of Revenue. He only gives, as a courtesy, gives a view to the city council. He doesn't have any civil service employees. clerk of the court, some of his money goes to the state, some of his money goes to his office to run his office, and the city says that's theirs. The city argues with me about a trust fund that we have. Our money that stays in the account overnight earns a little interest. Used to earn a lot more a few years ago. It doesn't earn much now. And they've been trying to sweep that money to use for city, as city general revenues. And that money is for all the agencies I serve to be used by me to provide them better service. So that would mean Water Management District, Florida Inland Navigation District, School Board, all those entities that I collect money for, they should be benefiting from any surplus. I should be redistributing it to them or spending it on functions, features, programs that benefit them to collect their money. So, but the city wants to take it off.
On that question, Chair, you already kind of told us about procurement and your view about that from a constitutional office point of view. What about central service, where you had the Supreme Sheriff out in charge of central services? Do you see that as different when you become mayor about
Yes.
their requiring constitutional office?
Yeah.
You still want them to participate in the central services, or should they have their own?
If they can prove to me they can do it better, then I certainly will release them to do that. The sheriff's office has been trying to get out of mud pool forever. JEA did it, and they tell us they save $3-4 million a year in lead costs.
JEA, central services, something JEA is talking about paying money.
That would be a shocker.
Yeah, that's just an
Yeah, the JEA is hurting. You know, no one's talked about all of the debt that our independent agencies and authorities have, and we're on the hook for all of that. Yeah.
Well, let me say this, about the same question. I mean, part of what happened, of course, was there are general counsel opinions out there that say strange things about the relationship between administration and constitutional officers. At least one of which I think is just dead wrong. So, what do you intend to do about the general counsel's office? I guess is where this.
I'm gonna change the way the general counsel is selected. It's the first thing I want to do with that office and immediately. I'm not an attorney, and so he may be right, but Rick Mullaney believes that the city charter trumps the state's constitution. He's told me that. He shared that. And I don't know how he gets it, but that's what he believes. And so that creates a problem in and of itself, if that's what your general counsel believes. The other problem that is created by the general counsel is the way that the general counsel is selected. They are selected by the mayor. Obviously, they're approved by the city council, but I will tell you, I've been there. I don't think I'm a rubber stamp guy. I mean, if I knew something really bad about you, John, and you were being presented for general counsel, then I would bring it out and I wouldn't vote for you. But if I didn't know you very well, and everything I saw was on my fact sheets in front of me, I'm not going to fight the mayor on his appointment. And but what you have is you have the mayor's general counsel. And so if the mayor wants to put it on the property tax bill and the tax collector is saying, no, it doesn't belong there, and you're the mayor's attorney, he's going to find a reason why you have to put it there. I want a general counsel that is a true general counsel, independent, and represents the people of Jacksonville, not the mayor's office, not the council's office, all the stakeholders. So I want equal representation if I was the tax collector or the sheriff or the school board or a citizen. And so we'll change the selection process. So.
All right, Victor, you want to answer our last question?
Yeah, this one, to get any insights, are there any present sources of local government revenue that you would try to reduce or eliminate? So is there a current revenue vehicle that the city uses that you would reduce or eliminate?
I would tell you this, that if we reduced or eliminated one, the top one on my list is the stormwater fee. It's inequitable. I don't believe it was needed.
Do you believe it's degenerative?
Oh yeah, I think it discourages growth and but it's just I mean, no tax is fair tax. I mean, you know, everybody talks about fair tax. There is no fair tax, but there are fairer taxes. And, but I would not classify a stormwater fee as a fair tax at all. And I would love to repeal that tax.
With that example, would you try to, you know, I think it's like 30 million or somewhere around that amount. So would you be looking at $30 million in cut to make up that money, or would that be like a millage increase or some other revenue vehicle to take that? I mean, how do we plug that $30 million hole?
But I hope everybody's going to be honest with you. You have to deal with the cards that you've been dealt. I mean, you have to play with the cards you've been dealt. So I'm inherit certain things. There is, the numbers moves around a little bit. There's a $45 million hole in the next year's budget. Okay. If I were to cut $30 million right now off the top of my head, that's $75 million. Do I know if I can identify $75 million in cuts that would not impact services, or more importantly, impact those core services? I don't know. What we have identified, we think, is around $40,000 to $50,000, just from a cursory view. Nelson, bless his heart, he just talks too much sometimes, but he did order a forensics accounting of the city's budget, and they have found many problems, and there's movement of the money all over the place. That happened when I was on the council, and if you don't stay up with it and you don't really know it, dollars can disappear that really didn't disappear, they just got shifted on you. So, you know, there's a lot of things we've got to do to get that budget, a better understanding of the budget than we have now from the outside, because they've been real clever.
Can I make a note to the group? I'm piggybacking on, I did a public records request. I'm piggybacking on Nelson Cuba's
Forensic accounting
request. They want $99, so I'm gonna have to pay the $99. But I should be getting it whenever I get it, sometime next week. So anyone who wants to join me on that can help me.
I wanted to add one more thing. You mentioned budget. This is I don't know if you know, this is a city comprehensive annual financial report.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a forensic accounting, but it does have a balance of liabilities and assets. And I encourage you or your members of your campaign to look at this document. I can share insights that I think are revealing here after we're done.
Appreciate that.
I think two things you ought to maybe hit on that you haven't touched on. Maybe you don't have to make him independent. I don't think he was registered in person, but the elimination of the ethics officer. Give us your views about that.
Well, we talked about redundancy earlier, and the Human Rights Commission is one. There is some redundancy in the Ethics Commission. There's an Ethics Commission in Tallahassee, investigate any issue, local or statewide, appointed, elected employee. Since talking to you, the Inspector General is not truly an independent Inspector General. They work for the mayor. So we believe we found a way to pay for both the Inspector General and put the ethics officer under her or him in that office, and then pay for that with funds that are outside the budget. We'd have that, and the Inspector General would be selected by a committee. The committee would be composed of public defender, the state attorney, chief judge. There's two more I can't think of off the top of my head. We're going to release that pretty quick. And they would select the Inspector General, and they would be a true Inspector General, and they wouldn't have any oversight from the mayor's office and report to the people.
I'm going to your website and something that is a little extra to this. You talk about creating jobs and helping emerging businesses. That makes more priority than almost anything else. There's nothing that would affect this tax base, nothing that would affect this city more than jobs.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see? What do you do? What has to go in place first? The business, the employer? How do you address stimulation in Jacksonville, Florida?
Well, there was a just recently released a report from Harvard studying small businesses. It said the cities in the country that have weathered this economic downturn and storm the best were the cities that had great relationships with small business and entrepreneurialism. They were a haven, if you will, for those types of businesses. And so the first thing we're going to do is release and eliminate all the impediments to getting started. Do you know where most people go when they start a business today? In government? They come to the tax collector's office.
Yep.
I get emails all the time. I want to start a business. How do I start? Well, that's not my job to tell them how to start a business. I collect taxes. But yeah, there's nothing going on in City Hall. We're gonna set up an office, small business office. It's gonna be all volunteers. I mean, retirees for the most part.
Store, the retired businessmen.
Can use them, and there's a lot of resources out there. Fresh Ministries is another one that works with small businesses. And we're not gonna be, you ask me for directions and I say, you go here, turn left there, you go to this office, you do that, you sign this, you get an attorney, you file with the state. We're not gonna tell them that. We're gonna walk them through it. We're gonna be with them. It's kind of like the Ritz-Carlton employee. If you ever go to Ritz-Carlton, you ask for directions, they don't give you this mental map. They say, follow me, and they take you there. So that's what we're gonna do. Follow us. We'll take you there. We're gonna help you get started. We're gonna buy from you. We're gonna find customers for you. We're gonna do everything we can to help you get up and launched. That's not happening now. We create more roadblocks with legislation and regulation, and Carter has liver pills. So we're going to be small business friendly. 60% of Americans work for a small business. So that's where the jobs will come from. The other engine is the port. We've already got a significant investment out there. What we didn't do in Better Jacksonville, other than plan for future O&M cost, is we didn't put a dime in the port, knowing that in 2014 the Panama Canal widening will be complete, and 40% of the shipping that was being dropped off on the west coast is coming all the way through to the eastern seaboard. And we are logistically and geographically the best location in the entire eastern seaboard, and we're not ready. 4 years is not a lot of time to dredge 7 miles of river.
We're ahead of a lot of the others.
Yeah, and our river is in much better shape than Savannah, but they're kicking our butt. You can get one ship in or one ship out. We can have traffic going both ways. And but we have not invested in the port like we should have. Their revenues are, anyone studying the port, their revenues I think around 53 million. They get 14 from us. They get about 23 from the income, and the rest they spend on debt service. They don't make a dime. I want them to be a true enterprise, an economic engine for us, not just in creating jobs and wealth in the economy, but I'd like to see them contribute instead of being on the tip, if you will, and taking $14 million away from us every year to run their operation.
I'd like to just interject something about the port. I attended a meeting the other night over in Arlington, and they're in a process right now of rebranding the airports. The JAA is.
Yeah, calling executive.
Yeah, to the tune of $200,000 just for Craig.
Doesn't make any sense. Have you been to Cecil Field lately? The western boundary line on the northern side, which I call the cantonment side, was a 12-foot chain link fence. The chain link's bigger than my little finger. They took 1.5 miles of it down and replaced it with a split rail fence. And every 25 feet, they planted trees in the middle of the pine forest. I don't know how much it cost. I don't know why they did it, but someone's spending money, and I understand it's a JEDC.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's so many examples like that, and the public sees it. And what's really crazy about that, the 12-foot fence kept deer from coming onto the runways and poachers and everything else. I mean, I don't understand why we do some of the things we do. 12th century roundabouts, the day that the mayor sent his message to the employees that economic times are tough. We're going to ask your union to take a 2% cut, and we're going to ask everybody to feel the pain. La 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 la, all good stuff. Everything was right and everything was accurate. On the other half of the same front page was a picture of the planting of the trees and the building of the roundabouts, and it's going to cost about $3 million. Now, what do you think every single employee in the city of Jacksonville thought? Well, I know where my 2% cut's going.
They got to find those trees, because that tree.
And a different patent, that's right.
Yeah, turns around.
I want to get rid of those accounts. I need y'all's help to do that.
Waste of money when we redo it.
I need your help to do that, because the public always fights when you take those monies out of those trust accounts. It's like John having a Christmas savings, at his credit union, and his wife loses her job, and they don't have enough money to pay the light bill, but they can't take the money out of their Christmas club. I mean, that's stupid, and that's what we do with these trusts that we set up. Yes.
Going through your bio, you sort of hinted that you might be somewhere in your 60s or
61.
Okay. If elected, do you intend to run for re-election? So would you serve 2 terms if elected?
So that's a little tricky question for me, because I don't think we'll get to serve 2 terms, because what we have to do is going to be ugly. And so I'm not planning on a second term. If we get it done in 2 years and the economy actually helps us and it turns 2 and we don't have that double dip that a lot of people are predicting, would I run a second term? I couldn't tell you now. I'm really not looking at that. If it happens, it would. I think it's going to be, the closer I get to it, the more anxious I become, because the problem's worse than even I knew. Every time I turn something over, I see something else. You got to be kidding me.
I think we
You
all
got to be
agree with
kidding
you
me.
on that. The problems are worse here.
And that's why I'm very careful about what I promise. I would tell you this. I've not told anybody this. I may ruin my opportunities with you. I'm not going to propose any tax increases. I'm not going to give a budget to the city council that includes a tax increase. But I wouldn't tell you that I wouldn't accept the notion if the public wanted to, if we couldn't get federal and state funding to handle the needs that we have at the port, I wouldn't oppose publicly a public referendum for a 1 cent sales tax. I just need to tell you that in case it ever comes up, because I would answer, I wouldn't oppose it. I don't think we need it right now. I'm not going to propose it. It's not in my platform. Huh? I'm not, but I'm not going to say that I would never do that. There is enough economic horsepower out there, if we could capture it, that might not be a bad deal for us. But I would have to see the cost benefit analysis. And again, I have no plans on introducing anything like that. That is not my thought. I think the worst thing you can do in this economy is add more tax burden on the people. So that's not something that I would ever propose, certainly not in my first year in office or second year in office. If the economy gets better.
Certainly not your 4th.
Yeah, maybe not my 4th.
Would you envision that would have a sunset period?
Yeah, but I'm different on the sunset. See, on Better Jacksonville, and you'd have to ask Martha Foote, my former aide, because she read both, and I have not actually read both. I had a half-cent sales tax legislation before I left the city council, but it was different than the mayor's. He called his Better Jacksonville. I didn't have a name on mine. We were going to use that extra half cent because this rolled up anyway. At the last penny is rolled up anyway, and the merchant keeps that. They make millions off of, if they have millions of transactions, they make millions off that roll-up. But we were not going to let the city bond that money. We listed our projects. It was not a sunset. It dried up. It died in 7 years. Okay, Didn't have to vote on it, because sunsets you vote on. So it would be a 7-year tax. We listed the 10 projects. We listed them in order, and we paid for them in cash. And the understanding was if we got to the 7th project and we didn't have enough money, we didn't do it, and we stopped taking the tax. And at that point, we did have to go back to the people and say, we did 7 projects. They cost more than we anticipated, give them an opportunity to go for another 7-year plan. I hated the fact that we bonded it and put it in debt. I don't like that. Cash as you go. I went to First Baptist. I've gone to First Baptist Church for 38 years. We pay everything with cash, or we don't do it. And I know there are things government can't buy with cash, obviously, but these were things that many of the projects that were in better Jacksonville. But roadways, things like that.
All right.
Yeah.
Kept you a long time.
Huh?
We kept you a long
I
time.
kept y'all. Sorry, I probably
No,
did that a little
that's
too.
fine. We told you half an hour, and we've now taken 70 minutes.
Has it really been that long? I thought it
It
had.
has really been that
You're gonna
long.
walk outside, it'll be dark.
So,
You're in trouble now.
I guess so. Is
So-
that clock right?
It's
yeah, it's a couple.
Yeah, I've got a reception in Mandarin, I think, at 5:15. So, huh? Okay.
Well, we know you had a busy day. Thanks for coming out.
Yeah.
especially with your
Thank you,
campaign
guys. Good to
opening.
meet you.
With 2-minute wrap up.
Oh yeah, if you want it,
Take
if you want it, if you want it.
No.
At the end.
All right, wave the elevator.
Good to meet you.
Yes, sir. Thanks for coming. Thank you.
John?
Good to meet you.
Good luck.
Good to see you.
Good to see you again.
John,
Huh?
thanks for having me.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, the public's welcome at the library, that's what it's here for. Yeah, you kind of, that's good. So.
That was interesting.
Yeah, it's just that.
Yeah, tax pensions, I sound like I'm a Republican, but it's really a Democrat.
It's some, yeah.
The mistakes that we know were made 30 years ago.
Either,
And this is one of the.
you do touch it, because Tiger Bear.
Unfortunately, too many people.
Let everybody know we're
Try.
we need some money.
Well, I voted on the federal elections. So, it's not a big deal.
Well, and you saw what we did, we're straight.
Well, we got 50% of the go. I'll try to get some together.
Yeah, well.
You need a mod.
It's
It's
all
all
easy.
easy.
Our planning is public people that tonight,
Because you're single person.
we have a group book for next Saturday.
There it is up there.
Couple of things.
It's gonna be 8 pages.
And all of these things. Yes, yes.
The sad thing in Jacksonville,
Yeah, and we
all the
can,
way through 2008.
even though the 2008 deficit was a mere our drug debt date is probably, okay, we'll see it there, it's probably the 7th of February, there's some flexibility there.
And now it's 1.5 billion, the official figure, 1.7 billion.
And if you guys want to do it, I'll tell you
And
what
it's
to
just a
Well,
do. But you guys can't get a hold of
And,
us. This is wrong.
everybody did it, I mean, it's both parties.
Yes, it is. It's very odd that, yes.
So why are you guys here?
I haven't heard him speak much. You wanted to hear what he
I haven't heard him
had to say.
speak at all. I just wanted to listen.
I've
Oh,
seen
okay.
I've seen his signs, I've seen his canvassing crews, I've heard all about his fabulous campaign, but I
Never
haven't
actually
actually
seen the
heard the
guy.
man speak.
I know his campaign staff better than I know him.
Well, actually, he's a good speaker.
It's not bad.
No, he's not bad, I honestly was not,
Sticks to his values,
I
seems
wasn't
very
expecting-
honest.
yeah, right, and did better than I expected.
You know,
I should recuse
you
myself.
guys, if you can get through to Elvin Brown,
I
he's
just- I
fine.
just
I just told him.
I hate it, I get this, but I
Okay,
just,
because I mean, I made like
Even if I hated him,
I said,
I
He
think
ruined my life!
I wrote him calls,
I mean,
said 5 different contacts,
No, I mean,
John,
you know.
what I'm trying to figure out.
No other mayor
And how
candidates
many
have bothered to
meetings
show
so
up.
far?
Yeah,
Well, this is our first
exactly.
one, so this was the first one.
Exactly.
My first email to Apple.
He shows us the respect of treating
Not
us
about this
seriously,
week, but just
Yeah.
and that's
generally
worth
saying
something.
To
You
me,
know,
that's
Oops,
like,
I better stop
Green
recording.
I'm serious.
Once
I like
again.
my
Whoops. Canceling this. Let's
You
turn
got
these-
that one.
let's turn these
My-
things
my-
off.
Every Wednesday night.
Yeah.
But he's got a campaign manager now, I know here, and I just told John, I wish you guys are upper Daniels or.
Did you record him? Is that what you were doing?
Yes.